Hello and welcome back to What You Need to Know for Worship Musicians. In this video, we're going to talk about instrument roles. Every instrument should be fulfilling a specific purpose or role in the music and the mix, which determines everything about how you play. The 6 roles are lead singer, lead instrument, rhythm, bass, harmony, and texture. This is different than the 7 common elements of music. The 7 elements of music is melody, harmony, rhythm, bass, timbre, texture, and form. The roles is what do you do to create those elements. All the roles interact with each other, and any instrument can potentially fulfill any role. But certain instruments are suited to certain roles. Take, for instance, the drums. The drums, obviously, that's suited to the rhythm role. The bass guitar is suited to the bass role. And one of the ways that you grow in roles is understanding, as you are fulfilling a role, how is that role interacting with all of the other roles in the music. We're going to talk about what roles does each instrument fulfill in just a few minutes. Since all instruments can fulfill any role, it's important to know what role you are fulfilling and how to fulfill it in each song you are leading. Also, you should understand which role you are not meant to be fulfilling and avoid interfering with the contributions of the other members of the team. So the piano is a good example of an instrument that can cover a lot of ground. It can be the lead instrument, and it can provide harmony, obviously. It can provide rhythm and bass and texture. If the person playing the piano is also singing, that's all of your bases covered in one single member of the team. But if you have an entire band with a bass player and a drummer and 2 guitar players and another keys player and 4 backup singers, if you've got all these other people playing with you, that one person playing that piano and singing has to limit what they do. They play less low notes to stay out of the way of the bass player. They play less rhythmically to stay out of the way of the drummer. There's all these different ways that person can change their approach to the music based on what role they should be playing and what role the people around them are playing in the music. Your role can change throughout the course of a song as the dynamics change, and this is something that you grow into as the song changes, as the dynamics in the song change. You change how you play to affect the dynamics, and that's the big key here, is understanding how the instrument roles affect dynamics. All the roles interact with each other, as we've already said, and are important to creating music that is balanced, cohesive, and communicative to the congregation. These guidelines will help you grow as a member of the team if you are ready to grow. You have to learn your instrument. You have to learn, how does theory apply to my instrument, and how do I apply that to music? If you haven't done that yet, then you're probably not ready. You might be, but you're probably not ready to think about what role you're playing in the band yet. But there's a lot of growth to be had in thinking about instrument roles and playing with instrument roles, and again, changing what instrument role you're playing as the song changes. If you're a guitar player and you got a big pedal board down at your feet, it's really easy to change the sound of your guitar and change your technique and your approach to the instrument itself to change your role between the verse and the chorus, between the chorus and the bridge. And you can have a lot of creativity just by learning about roles. So now let's talk about each of the roles, and I'm going to group them together into pairs just to help it go a little bit faster, hopefully. So first, the lead singer and lead instrument roles. The 1 or 2 minimum team members required for congregational worship to happen in a church service. You have to have at least one person with an instrument and a voice, and that's the bare minimum required to lead a congregation in worship. The singer, first of all, lead singer is responsible for leading and directing a congregation by singing, speaking, and gesturing appropriately, singing on key and in rhythm, hopefully, and allow the congregation, which is made up of probably mostly non-singers, to easily join together in one voice. We can also lead through speaking and gesturing. There's all these different ways that you can lead through speaking, and that leads to an action everybody interacts with. Worship leaders can find ways to involve the congregation at all times during the musical worship portion of the service. If the congregation is just standing there and watching worship happen, that's a bad sign. The people aren't interacting together. The people aren't joining together in one voice. Now, as far as the lead instrument goes, the lead instrument is usually a piano or an acoustic guitar. So the lead instrument provides the musical structure. And on their own, the lead singer and lead instrument roles can fulfill all of the roles at once. So in a full band, the lead singer and lead instrument work together at all times to bring the music and the voices together. All the other roles are fulfilled by the rest of the team, which follows them. Rhythm and bass obviously go together. You think of the drums and the bass player as the rhythm section. Instruments in these roles contribute greatly to the changing emotions, feel, dynamics, and energy of the music, with lots of tension and release happening. In a solo acoustic worship setting, for instance, the acoustic guitar helps change the dynamics by changing strumming patterns throughout the song. You change your dynamics by changing your rhythm. In a full band, the drummer uses the various pieces of the drum kit to change the energy from the intro to the verse to the chorus, etc. In a breakdown, the drums may stop, and instruments with rhythm as a secondary role take over at a lower dynamic. Rhythm never goes away, and you never want the rhythm to go away. The lead singer is a great example of an instrument who has rhythm as a secondary role, because the rhythm is so integral to the lead melody. When those drums stop in the breakdown, the lead singer needs to be able to maintain that rhythmic feel that the drummer was giving us. Ultimately, all instruments and singers must cooperate with the rhythm, but all do not have a sense of rhythmic feel on their own. For instance, a keys pad has basically no rhythm. It's just one sound that never changes. That's what a pad is. There's nothing rhythmic about that. It's still cooperating with the rhythm to change the chords in time. It doesn't have any rhythmic feel on its own because of the way that the instrument sounds. Speaking more about bass now, the level of bass frequencies mostly coincides with the dynamic range. Louder music, in other words, means there's more bass. Low dynamics means there's less bass. There should only be one or two instruments in a full band contributing to the bass role. Usually the bass guitar, synth bass, and or the kick drum are contributing to the bass role. If you have all of the other instruments with tons of bass in them, that ruins the dynamics. All of the instruments and voices are capable of several things which can ruin the mix. Overplaying, you're playing too many notes in the wrong part of the song. Excessive bass, you're playing too many low notes. You're interfering with the bass player, and you're making it so the dynamic range is limited. And if you're playing with poor rhythm, then you're going to stick out like a sore thumb in a very bad way. So all of these things are very important for everybody in the band to understand. Lastly, the harmony and texture roles. These are the final two roles. Every single instrument and voice in the band is always contributing to these roles while they are playing, which adds layers to the music. Harmony refers to the diatonic and sometimes chromatic notes in the key which the song is played. So harmony refers to just playing the right notes. Beyond that, playing the right voicings of chords. This is why knowing your scales and chords is so important, because it's just an expectation that the band is going to get up there and play all the right notes. If that's not the expectation, that's a problem. Everybody's going to make mistakes. That's guaranteed. We can't stop ourselves from making mistakes, but we can work to improving. And that's the only goal here, is just to work, to grow, to get better every single time you lead worship. If playing the right notes is contributing positively to the harmony role, then playing the wrong notes is a negative contribution. Nobody wants to listen to a singer who can't sing on pitch, who can't sing in tune, or a guitar player that forgot to tune his guitar before he got up there. Nobody wants to listen to that. Texture refers to the sound or timbre, one of the elements of music that we talked about earlier, the timbre of each instrument and voice. So this includes effects and processing at the soundboard as well. Each instrument and voice is a unique textural layer to add to the music. So it's important for each team member to know how they sound. The human voice is a perfect example of this. No two singers sound exactly alike. If you sound different than the person next to you, then you are going to be set apart from them in a good way. You want there to be separation between the instruments in the timbre. The right sound in the right part of the song contributes positively to the texture role, obviously, and the wrong sound contributes negatively. Now, this interacts with the harmony side of things, where if you're playing the wrong notes, obviously, you're going to sound bad. That's going to contribute to a bad texture in the music. Or if you're just playing the wrong voicing, you're playing the right chords, you're playing in tune, but say you have the wrong voicing of the chord, that's going to contribute negatively to the texture because it's the wrong voicing. Whether or not it's the right notes, the wrong order of those notes and the wrong inversion with the wrong sound of the actual notes interacting with each other can be a bad texture and can be the wrong texture in the music. That's one of the toughest things for us to deal with. Harmonic and textural layers are the other main aspect of dynamics. This is important. More layers equals louder music. Less layers equals quieter music. This is obvious. When we go to a breakdown, everybody stops playing, and that's what makes the music quieter. If we come to a breakdown and everybody keeps playing, that limits the dynamic range. One of the other most important things that we can learn is about overplaying. Whether or not you're playing the right notes, if you're playing in the wrong moment, you are contributing negatively to the music. To go along with that, a much greater dynamic range is possible in the mix if each member plays the right parts with the right sounds at the right times. That is the heart of it. The music will sound bigger in the big moments. The music will sound more intimate in the small moments. Everything about the music is better if we're all playing our roles properly. Let's go into the individual instruments now, and let's talk about what role does each instrument play in the music based on what instrument you play. First of all, singers. Harmony, you want to sing with good pitch and intonation. Pitch refers to your ability to make a single note and to be unwavering from that single note that you're trying to sing. Intonation refers to being in tune with each other as a group. Texture. As a singer, you are developing good, healthy vocal technique, and that will improve the sound of your voice objectively. Nothing beats singing scales, singing arpeggios for building your technique. And yeah, you're actually using music theory to do that. That's why you can't skip over music theory as a singer. And also on top of this, we're adding effects like reverb and double trackers and things and delays at the soundboard. That also adds to your texture. But everything starts with good technique. Rhythm as a singer. Excellent rhythm will help the congregation follow you. Powerful worship moments happen when everyone is singing together. Bass. So this is one that you want to avoid as a singer. So all microphones experience something called the proximity effect. This causes excess bass to build up and kind of ruins the sound of your voice. A lot of that is fixed with EQ at the soundboard. Of course, leading. All singers may interact directly with the congregation, whether you are lead singer or backup singer. Let's talk about roles for electric guitar players and acoustic guitar players. Harmony, play the right notes at the right times, play the right voicings, tune your guitar as often as you can. Texture, as a guitar player, playing chords, melodies, harmonies, or hooks affects your sound. So again, that's the voicings. Guitar players focusing in the texture role work to make the best note choices and effect choices at the same time. That's how you do it. Rhythm. As an acoustic guitar player, you have a strumming pattern. That's got to fit with what the drummer is doing. If you are the lead instrument for that song, the purpose of the lead instrument is to join the voices with the instruments. You do that through your rhythm by playing the right strumming pattern, whether you're an acoustic guitar player or electric guitar player. Whether or not you fit into the mix depends on your rhythm. Excess bass can ruin the texture of a 6-string guitar by making it sound too muddy, but also you can interfere with the bass player, or you can have too much overlap with the keys or with the vocals. You can fix that with EQ. The audio engineer might do that at the soundboard. Leading, again, usually this is the acoustic guitar. Many songs are written on an acoustic guitar, so that is kind of the expected sound for a lot of these songs in the first place. Roles for bass guitar. We are interacting with the harmony role. Obviously, we have to have a good understanding of our scales and our chords, inversions, everything like that. Texture, the sound of your instrument determines how well it fits into the mix. It's very easy for the bass to get lost in the music in a higher dynamic part of the song if the texture of the bass isn't right. Rhythm, the more bass notes you play, the more bass frequencies there are in the music. If you just play your low E string once and you let it ring, it's going to die away pretty fast. But if you're playing at quarter notes with the beat, or if you're playing eighth notes, that's going to keep the sound of the bass in the music. So if you're a bass player and you're wondering, how do I make my bass more energetic? You use your rhythm to partly control the amount of bass energy in the mix, like I just said. Bass is your primary role as the bass player, so good technique, understanding of harmony, texture, and rhythm. All of these things allow the instrument to exist in its own space. Lastly, to finish off, leading doesn't make a good lead instrument because it can't actually physically create the structure needed to lead with a lead singer. Next, we're talking about the roles for keys, harmony, understand the inversions and how your intervals affect the harmony, especially as the lead instrument. So you listen to the reference track and then you do your best to take the information that the chord chart gives you and apply it to the sound that you hear in the reference track to make the right voicings. As far as texture goes, we're using digital keyboards that are capable of all kinds of sounds. Blended piano pad sounds being very common. You have the piano sound, and then you have all of these layers of synthesizers and sound effects and reverbs. As you play notes, all of those different sounds happen. As far as rhythm goes, simple rhythms are the most common, as keys often only play the changes, melodies, and hooks. Again, if you listen to the reference track, you will hear what I mean. You will hear the keys are very subdued in their rhythm. Bass, if there's a bass player, the bass is their job. So you're probably going to get all of your bass frequencies cut. This doesn't mean that you aren't allowed to play the low notes on the piano. It just means that the frequencies of those low notes are going to be cut from the mix. The low notes sound very texturally different from the high notes. That is a big part of the keys sound as well, is the timbre, the texture of the low notes, but with the low frequencies being cut. Finally, the lead role. Many of the slower, more contemplative songs are piano-led. Finally, the roles for drummers. Yes, harmony does matter for drummers. The tuning, each piece of the kit is tuned to a pitch, an actual note in the musical scale, but you're probably not going to hear what that pitch is. As far as the texture goes, each element of the kit has its own unique sound and is used by the drummer in different parts of each song to vary the dynamics. Dynamics is what it's all about for the drummer. Rhythm, playing the right rhythm on the right part of the kit, has the biggest effect on the feel of the song, because rhythm is how we feel the music. Bass, it's the kick drum. Bass is important to all of the drums. A lot of the tone of each of the drums comes from those low mid frequencies. Leading, the drums are not physically capable of creating harmonic structure. The one thing that I've left out so far in this video is what about multi-tracks? We use Ableton multi-tracks pretty much every single Sunday at our church. What roles do the tracks fit into? If the team is playing with multi-tracks, each team member is still responsible for their roles in the music. So just because there's multi-tracks doesn't mean you can give up or forget about practicing or don't prepare or don't listen to the songs. You are the actual person leading the congregation on stage. No matter what instrument you play, you are leading the congregation with your presence on stage. So if you're just standing there not playing or you're miming, everybody's going to know and everybody's going to see, and that is going to harm the worship experience. You are still responsible for your role, and you are still fulfilling it to the best of your ability. If you have a memorized part, which you memorized from the multi-tracks or from the reference track, you should still be aware of your role and whether or not that memorized part that you learned is fulfilling it. Whatever you do, fulfilling your role is more important than playing a memorized part. Know your theory. If you know your basics, you will be able to change something like that on the fly, and you'll be able to come up with something a lot more easy if you have the music theory skills behind you. Multi-track can fulfill any role except the lead roles. In our church, specifically at Redemption Hill, we want the tracks to primarily fulfill the harmony and texture roles. So all of those layers to the music. The tracks can do all of that, but it doesn't replace the people on stage. Multi-tracks come from Ableton and are mixed in with the rest of the live instruments to give more dynamic range and layers to the music. Like I just said, multi-tracks also change how the band interacts with the lead instrument. So we've got all of these multi-tracks that are playing. You can't stop them because that stops the song. So everybody in the band is focused on fitting into this grid of playing exactly in time with the tracks. That takes over a little bit of what the lead instrument is supposed to do. The multi-tracks are kind of doing that. They're kind of creating that structure. So the lead instrument is still joining the congregation with the band, but you're doing it more so as a figurehead because the tracks are providing the structure. You are still leading the congregation, but you are doing so within the grid of Ableton. Multi-tracks add to the music, but we never want the tracks to interfere with the roles of the live musicians. The people on stage are what matters most. They are the ones who are leading the congregation. That's how worship happens in church.